Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you learn all the ways to grow their firm, sharpen their skills, and have consistent increasing sales. I cover topics such as detaching from the emotional side of the sale, having paradigm shifts in the most important part of your business, which is the nucleus of your accounting firm, sales, and how to see an objection really as an asset and stop giving away your time for free for those that don't deserve it, so you can actually get paid your value and your worth and grow your top line revenue. You'll learn tips, sales strategies, as well as hear from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly the blueprint on how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Our special guest is a fractional CFO firm and focuses on growth-minded business owners looking to scale and sell their businesses. She's also the host of the Keep What You Earn podcast. Her real talk and relatable examples for financial information is a source of inspiration and not intimidation. She is also a financial literacy advocate, junior achievement donor and volunteer, and a sought-after speaker for masterminds and entrepreneur communities. But before we welcome our very special guest to the show, if you're an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm owner and you want to stop trading time for dollars and let go of overly demanding clients and finally get paid based on your value and your worth while still massively boosting your revenue, here's what I've got for you. Here at the Abundant Accountant, I show you a system to fill your firm with ideal clients who not only value your time so you can catapult your firm to the next level, but work the hours you want to work while still having plenty of free time every single week for yourself and your family. And not only that, I'm also going to show you how to do all of this in a way that feels simple, effortless, and automatic. If you want me to show you exactly how to do this, go to theabundantcall.com right now and book a call with me and my team. Once again, that's theabundantcall.com. And now let's welcome our very special guest, Shannon Weinstein, to the show. Welcome, Shannon, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to have you back here at the Abundant Accountant Podcast. And for those that don't know who you are, if you could do me a favor and just do a quick intro on you and what kind of firm you have, and also like where you're located in the country and what you've created for yourself.
Sure. So my name's Shannon Weinstein. I've been a CPA since 2009. I run my own fractional CFO practice currently. I left my corporate job in late 2021 and I became an accountant because I lost a bet with my dad and ended up taking an accounting class that I ended up loving. And I absolutely love teaching the language of business to business owners, entrepreneurs. And I also have a podcast called Keep What You Earn. And to your other question, I currently live most of the year in Guanacaste, Costa Rica, where I'm currently at. And the rest of the year, I'm in Connecticut in the States.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to have you here because I think you, and by the way, for those of you listening, Shannon and I are not related, but this is like, the Smiths. This is the Smiths, except it's today is the Weinstein show. And I'm just so excited to talk to you about this because I know getting leads is probably the biggest challenge we hear when clients come to me here at the Abundant Accountant when I ask them, well, what's your biggest challenge with your sales in your firm? And they say, well, lead generation and getting leads and getting clients. I'm like, that's not sales. That's marketing. Getting leads is one thing. Closing leads is another, and that's the sales department. So what you're talking about, and we're going to talk about here, is the power of podcasts for your lead generation. And, I know you've generated a ton of recurring revenue for your fractional CFO firm. And I'd love it if you could share prior to starting being on podcast, what was your revenue in that department? And then what is it now? So we know where we're starting and ending from. And just sharing the steps in the journey because, Shannon, I've worked with a lot of firm owners, bookkeepers, fractional CFOs, tax planning, resolution, tax attorneys. I don't think anyone even knows what to say to even get on a podcast. And, they're introverted, just want to do the work. I just want to get the client and do the work, but not do the work to get the client, if that makes sense. So hopefully you can share an easy process on how to do this, because I think you've definitely shown that this process does work. And personally, I know it's worked for me and my business. But where did you start before you even started to get on podcast? And we're going to focus mostly on that, not about starting your own podcast, because let's just be honest, Shannon, like how much work was that? Because I know how much that is.
And I do daily episodes. So like, we're not even going to go down that rabbit hole of, I'm not assuming anyone is going to go do that, but I'm going to tell you how the podcasting space helped me create that lead funnel and that revenue as well by me being a guest on shows. That's really where it started. So here's the interesting thing. When you ask that question about like before and after, I'm going, oh my God, like I don't remember before.
Well, I mean, I sort of vaguely do, but what was it before?
So before I was before I was on shows. Now I started getting on shows in like 2020. And I had only built my business in 2019. So like it was a while ago for me, but here's what I vividly remember, that before I was really using podcasting as an intentional strategy to generate leads. Before that, I was an order taker. So before that I was doing tax prep services. I was doing bookkeeping, and anyone with a beating pulse who came to me and said, I need my taxes done, I was like, great, here's my quote, let's do it. And I felt like that person behind like the burger counter was just, I'm just here to take your order and go give you that. Like it was easy because that's what accountants are used to doing a lot of the times. And when I started really getting into podcasting, it really was one of those things that opened up my mind to, oh my gosh, I can do the type of service I want to, and I can speak to the specific customer that wants that thing. So it really it shifted me more into that mindset of I can utilize that ideal client persona, which I know you talk about a lot, and I can really start reaching them in a more direct way and building up trust and rapport with them through podcasting, and be able to tell a little bit of my story, a little bit more about what we do. It was almost like an infomercial about what we do for our clients, as opposed to a 30-second, pointing and dancing scroll through. So I started really leaning into podcasting instead of social media to generate those kind of higher level clients that were looking for a bit more and not that transactional order taking type of thing.
Yeah. And I think you were more intentional, like you said, building trust, building rapport, and speaking into that ideal client persona. Because when you do that and you get in the right podcast and on the right podcast, now you're actually in someone's ears. Where on social media, they're just there because they were distracted anyway and got on there. Where a prospect going to actually listen to a podcast episode is going there with intention. So it's a huge difference. I didn't even think we were going to talk about the difference between going this route versus posting a bunch of stuff on social media and crossing your fingers and hoping you're going to get some people to respond to you. So, okay, love it. Now, before in 2020, podcasting, what was the annual recurring revenue versus what it is today, 4 years down the road, by investing in this strategy, or I should say investing your time, because I don't think you pay any money to be on people's podcasts, but it is a significant amount of time invested for outreach. And I know we're going to go through 3 steps that you used to get onto these shows and become the person delivering the value. And instead of being the burger clerk and order taker, now you're actually speaking to the ideal client and being more of like the neurosurgeon of numbers.
Yeah. And if I go with the burger analogy, it's more like the gourmet chef instead of the fry cook. Instead of churning out things at scale that are more transactional, I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to make this into like more of an art piece, actually really put care and do care into what I do on an individual client level with more depth. And to answer your question on recurring revenue, I want to say it's 20% of what it is now. So like I basically 5x'd recurring annual revenue in like pre-podcast life to now, mostly transforming the offer into fractional CFO and transforming who I'm serving, all of that going hand in hand with who I'm messaging to and how I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 5x increase of revenue on your monthly reoccurring now, just by the efforts of what we're going to talk about today. So that's a very high return on even your investment of time.
Yeah. And to your point, I want listeners to understand that there's a lot of work that you put into marketing and lead gen, and it can feel really exhausting. And I think that's why a lot of accountants don't like it, is it feels like throwing a bottle into the ocean and hoping it comes back one day. Like it feels like a big gamble to post a bunch of content and then not really see any direct results, because we're very methodical thinkers. We're like, okay, I put this out there, then something should come back. It's more transactional, and we're always rewarded for effort. You know what I mean? Like even billable hours. Effort equals more money. So the more time I'm spending on marketing, why am I not making more money?
Yep.
You have to spend the time on the right things that are actually going to be the things that work, the machines that work. And to the point earlier, like I would much rather be in someone's ear for 20 minutes than across their eyes for 20 seconds. And that's the really
100%.
big thing. Really, really big thing about podcasting is that you can really captivate with that content, as opposed to just get attention and have it be, that small little bit of time.
Yeah. And they connect with you. So, in an underlying way, when you do a podcast or you're listening to us right now, I'm building rapport and I'm building trust with you in a way that you would never see if you went and read a post on my LinkedIn profile. Just not the same.
It's not the same. And you can tell story, right? You can use all the different ways to persuade, the ways to tell stories, the ways to articulate your points. Like you have so many opportunities to showcase your personality as well, your values, all of it can come across through in a very direct or indirect way with podcasting. So I found it to be a really useful way to have people get to know me without even knowing me yet. Like there's already a head start on the sales process,
There is.
because they already know they want to work with me, or they felt like they were connected to me in some way, where that buying decision has shortened significantly. And now I don't really have to bring them through the whole sales process. Like they already know they want to work with me. It's just a matter of when are we starting and what's the price.
Yeah. And do they qualify to work with you? So, I want to talk about, because I'm going to guess step 0 of this process is figuring out, well, in the sea of podcasts, because I don't even know how many podcasts there are anymore in this podcast space. Like there's just probably so many. I started this in 2018, so I have no idea what it is today. But there's a lot of things to listen to in a lot of different industries. So before you started getting on to different shows for your lead generation to implement this power of podcasting, how did you choose what podcast you were even going to reach out to?
Yeah. That was a really tough thing at first, which was like, I really just wanted to get on as many shows as I could to get practice. So there are a couple of ways to go about this, because I actually do believe that getting on when you're looking at shows, let me back up to this. What you really want to do is get on shows where your ideal client is tuning into. So, I love my accountant podcasts like yours, Michelle. I love the accountant podcasts that are out there. Don't get on accountant podcasts where all you're going to do is talk to other accountants. And you guys can bond and be friends and all these things. And I know I'm doing it right now, but this is to serve you, to tell you that you can get out there and be on, like, there are podcasts for, oh my gosh, so many different industries. Like there's beauty businesses and
like, what did you choose in the beginning?
I was in
2020.
fitness. Yeah, I was in
Okay.
fitness. I did fitness professionals. So I got on fitness shows.
Okay.
So whatever your niche is, if it's like construction or beauty or whatever, like you can get on those shows by finding the podcast that those types of professionals listen to. And I was getting on fitness shows. I was also in fitness part-time, which helped.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to bring a unique perspective and get on those shows and get a lot of clients from them.
So you got to pick, and this might force you in your firm. And for those, and maybe you can share your story on this too. And I know you had your toes dipped in the fitness world, but in the sales world, when I'm working with my clients, it's like, Michelle, I can't, how do I speak to this ideal client? I said, well, you got to pick one. I know you might work with not everyone who comes your way, because you're not going to be an order taker anymore, but maybe you want to work with service-based businesses, and some are I'm just going to make it up, lawyers, some are accountants, and some are, something else. And so my clients would have three different quote unquote niches. But for what we're talking about here, you have got to just choose one thing. And there's a great book. I'm sure you've read it, Shannon, right? The One Thing. You gotta just select one niche, one angle, be it construction workers or restaurant tours or whatever you call them, or it doesn't matter, but this is only going to work if you become the specialist to one audience.
Yeah. And I agree with that. But I also take another look at it too, where if you are too afraid to commit to an industry niche, there is a niche in what you do in your offer too. Like I know somebody who has an entire business where they do just QuickBooks online cleanups. If you're like a year or two cluster F, and that you need, like they do the same thing over and over again for people with a unique problem to solve. So there's the industry niche, and then there's the niche of I solve a very specific problem that seems to present itself a lot with this group of people.
Correct.
So it's more about the problem you solve and being able to articulate how you can help solve that. So now you're attracting people who are like, hey, I have that problem, because people are going to start paying attention when that you start kind of like poking those nerves, right?
Yeah, and I think the problem you solve still needs to go. If you're going to, we're talking to the bookkeeping firm owner, the accountant, the tax firm owner who already doesn't have a lot of time. So we got to simplify this down. I would pick not only the problem you solve, so be it QuickBooks Online Cleanup projects, but then it's going to be QuickBooks Online Cleanup is what you're going to talk about for, be it the fitness professionals or whatever it is, because otherwise you're going to be spinning your wheels, unless you've got 40, 60 hours a week to do this. But I don't think so. So, okay, you pick your niche, you pick your industry, and you pick your niche in your offer, which is the specialty. When you started, Shannon, what was the offer in the niche that you did?
I was with fitness professionals and I was doing basic books and taxes. I've since migrated over to fractional CFO for professional service B2B.
Got it. Okay. So it evolved into that. What is the first step that you've divvied down this? And everyone who's listening, grab your yellow pad or pen and paper or your Remarkable. I don't have one of those yet. I don't know if you have one, Shannon, but those things look really cool. A notepad that erases. I know it's like $700, but I think I might get one and get away from paper 100%. That's my next goal. But okay,
you should get him to sponsor. You should get him to sponsor, Michelle.
I know. No one can pay me enough to do the sponsor thing. I'd had sponsors here for a couple years. Woo, that's a lot of work too, but we're not going to get into getting sponsorship. So back to our steps on, really benefiting and seeing the ROI of the power in podcasting. What is, besides step 0, which is getting into the niche of the industry and then the niche of your offer, those two go hand in hand. What is the next thing a firm owner listening, got to be simple, right? Very step by step that they need to do.
So they need to identify the shows they want to pitch. So what shows do you want to be on? And I group them into a couple different categories. One is, the shows that would be like the perfect ideal reach, because they might be in the top shows in the category of what you want to be in. So if I go back to my fitness days, right, I would go to like the top 10 fitness podcasts and I'd say that's the reach. It's kind of like college. Like those are the reach schools. Then you have more of the safety ones, which are going to be the less popular or just starting out, where you can get your feet wet and you can get practice, because a lot of us accountants are introverted and we want to get kind of that muscle memory going. You want to start doing some reps and some warm-ups to get used to, being in that interview forum and being on that microphone, which is slightly uncomfortable. So you really want to get some reps in when the stakes are lower, I would say, and get comfortable articulating and messaging that offer and niche and knowing how to talk to your ideal client, right? That's all part of step 0. When you have a really solid message to share, then you want to be able to share that on the right shows so you can get the biggest reach you can and be able to get in front of that audience. So I would say pitching shows intentionally based on who is listening to them, not based on the ones you particularly enjoy.
Correct. Yeah. This has nothing to do about what you enjoy listening to. This is about where your client that you want to work with is listening to. And where, if you're doing your, like the example you gave, the QuickBooks online cleanups, that's pretty specific. So you want to go to places like, personal like fitness people are great. They never get their books done incorrectly. I mean, I got a couple friends like that. It's like, oh my God, you guys need to go see your bookkeeper. So you chose 10 podcasts that were your like top 10 school choice if you were to go to college, right? And then did you also choose 10 safety podcasts for like your safety school? So you made a list of 20.
Yeah, just about. So at any given point in time, we're making a constant list in my company right now of shows that are really good targets. So I would make a concerted effort. And actually, because accountants, you don't have much time, I recommend actually going on Upwork or having a VA or having somebody do this and do the research for you. Like make a list of the good targets, maybe give them the guidelines on, okay, I want 30 total shows. I want a mix of reaches and safeties. So I know that I can get on, say, a total of 5 to 10 of them. That would probably be a reasonable goal, is like 5 to 10 out of 30 that you could possibly get an appearance on. And then you want to book them. Like you basically have to assume that you're probably gonna have a roughly 10% success rate with your pitches. So pitch enough where you're going to get down to, or if I want to have like 5 interviews, I have to send out 50 pitches. So you have to kind of plan around that and know that not everyone's going to say yes to you or even respond to you, but you have to be ready to send out those pitches. And by pitches, I mean an email to the host or to the coordinator, just kind of sending in the ask of what you can provide them, what you can offer for value, and being able to explain, hey, I would love to be on your show and here's why, in a way that is going to be approachable for them, and a way that doesn't really circle around you, but around their audience. Again, focus on the audience. Say how you can serve them. Like what unique information do you have, a unique experience? And this gets into actually my step 2, which is presentation, and a little bit of like a packaging of your episode. When you're pitching, you want to have a very clear and concise topic. Never say, we can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah,
as a host, I'm like, do not put like, don't do this like, what do you want for dinner thing to me, please. Just tell me what you're going to come and talk about, what you're passionate about, what you want to our audience to hear from you, because this is also in service of you and your messaging, but you have to be super clear about what that message is. So if your message is, please don't commingle your business and personal expenses, then great. Let's talk about like the 5 reasons why you shouldn't commingle, or let's talk about the 3 biggest risks to your LLC, based on the commingling, right? So
or how much it'll cost you to do a cleanup project and have some bookkeeper or someone, separate your expenses and organize it, and how much extra you're going to pay for doing that.
Exactly. You want to bring awareness to this topic and make sure that there's like one particular message you want your audience member to walk away with. If you could have one fundamental belief, new thought, inspiration, something they learned, pick one thing. To your point earlier, pick one thing you want them to walk away with and have burned into their retinas or their ears after hearing you. And they're like on repeat going, gosh, like I can't get that out of my head. Shannon said I really need to go do this and I'm going to go do it. And they're going to associate that with you. That's building trust because you're really helping them through a particular problem in depth. And you want to have a really clear, like 3-step process or 5-step process or whatever, the tips too, so that A, it's easy for the host to navigate the episode. And B, it's really clear so that you don't go off on tangents too much and you can bring it back into your 3 tips or your 4 things or your 5 things.
Yeah, it's similar to like what we're doing here, We talk about sales. We talk about growing your firm. Just follow exactly what I do here. If you listen to the Abundant Common podcast, you just copy it, but for exactly what you're going to do. And I think, Shannon, these examples that you gave were so great. The 5 tips, the 3 steps, the 5 steps, whatever it is, but having that one fundamental belief. And for those of you listening here, I think I have like 3 fundamental beliefs with sales, that you all can get paid up front and never have accounts receivable. You all can charge probably 2 to 3 to 5 times more than what you're charging now and not lose any clients, and always being able to increase revenue and decrease the client load. And I know it's possible because all my clients have proven it to me. And I know, Shannon, you've done the same in your business and have, morphed into this and have been able to live in multiple places and have this completely online business and have your own podcast. I mean, it's really possible. And when you have that belief and it's so strong, at the end of the day, every episode here on the Abundant Accountant is doing exactly the 3 steps that Shannon's talking about, even though we haven't gotten to the third one yet. But I already know what's coming. And when she talked to me about, I even said, Shannon, what do you want to talk about? Because she's here to deliver value to you today. This is how you can make more money. Abundant Accountant Podcast is all about increasing revenue and making more money. She's like, oh, I know how to make more money. I increased my annual recurring revenue 5 times than what it was before because I got on people's podcasts, and that's the power of podcast. And this doesn't take a lot of time. How much did you get a VA or someone at Upwork to do this for you?
I did because I'm pretty good at measuring what is worth my time.
Yes.
And if something is going to cost less than, say, $100 an hour, I'm pretty much always going to outsource it. I'd say $50 an hour for sure. 50 to 100, I'm contemplating. But if something's going to take like an hour a week and cost me $25 to $30, no brainer, cut the check and make that problem go away is how I operate. So I've always been pretty in tune with, if somebody else can make this their entire focus, then I don't have to context switch and jump into that. And I don't have to distract myself from the core client work when I was building my business. So in order to get all of this done, sometimes it's a who, not how. If you've read that book, it's so good, by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. Mm-hmm. And it really comes down to who can help you with this, who is already doing this. And I definitely hired somebody on Upwork to help me with a lot of the back end work. So all I had to do was construct the pitches and approach the hosts and start engaging with them on social media a little bit to foster rapport and relationship. And then eventually come in as like the expert in accounting for Fit Pros. Because most people didn't choose that niche. So like I was also a unique person who became known in that space.
Out.
Yeah, I was known in that space as somebody who could serve them. And then here's the other thing too, it's a domino effect. I was on one show, somebody else listens to that show, they invite me on their show. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of cascades from there. So you may not even realize that a lot of the exposure you're getting, you don't know who's listening because it can be other people who have shows who are listening to that. So you have to look at not just the direct reach, but also the indirect reach of what other hosts are listening to this and then will hear me. And I can use this as an example when I do my pitches. So it kind of unravels from there exponentially. It's like an avalanche of reach. It's so good.
It's like octopus arms. So did the Upwork person or your VA also get, because I know someone's wondering this, so I'll just say it for them. Well, Shannon, this all sounds great, but how did you get the name and the emails and all that of each host when you reached out to your 30 to 50 podcast?
So number one, almost every show or the host has an Instagram. So they all have social media of some kind. A lot of them have podcast websites where there's actually a link to like contact us to be a guest or here's the email. It's really not that hard to get. A lot of them are putting it publicly. So you can do that. And the host name is usually on the tile. Like you can tell who hosts the show. You can look them up. You can find out more about them. And that person that you hire could do that for you. They could do the research to be like host name, what's their handle, what's the social media link, what's their website, right? And you can find a way to get in touch with them or their team. It's not too hard because a lot of them, if they are accepting guest applications or they're accepting guest pitches, they will want them. So like they'll put a way for you to get in touch with them. So it's really not that hard to find, but can be time consuming if you're looking at 50 at a time.
Yeah. So get the VA or the person at Upwork, which is a VA, to help you and support you in making this happen. Because if you look at it and say, yes, Shannon and Michelle, I'm going to totally do this. This is how I'm going to generate leads. And I'm going to see a 5x return on my time too. And then you say, yeah, but I have all these tax returns to do and I got all this client work to do. That's exactly what we're talking about, is just outsourcing it so it actually gets done. Okay, anything else on the presentation part of things on what they're going to say to these hosts in the email?
I will leave you this one other tip because I cannot go without saying this. Your duty is not to educate them on how to do it.
Mhm.
Like you don't have to, guys, lecture them on accounting. Do not teach debits and credits. Do not teach the how behind it. Don't teach them how to make the sausage. Just tell them how damn good it tastes. do not do not think that you have to teach them so much and pour so much content. You're going to want to like pour your whole heart out into this episode. Keep it simple. Keep it streamlined. Like the three reasons why you want to consider an S corporation for your business. Don't tell them how to make the election, how to figure out your salary, how to fill out the tax return, how to do this. Don't worry about the how. The how comes later. You're going to help them with the how. Create the appetite for why and what. Why do I want this? What is it? And then the next stage is learning the how they can work with you and how they can go the next step. And that's what we're going to talk about next. But you really want to stay in the presentation of creating curiosity. And if you leave them with no curiosity and a lot of overwhelm, you haven't done the job. You have to keep it simple. Your job is not necessarily to educate them. It is to inspire action. Those are different things.
I agree 100% with this, and this is a big challenge. I know with a lot of firm owners listening, because in the sales side of things, we like to speak accountanese to clients in a prospect meeting before you even get a client. We like to answer their quick questions because you do know their answer probably because you're all very smart. How did you figure out, Shannon, that you just want to tell them how good it tastes instead of telling them the exact recipe on how you did it? Or, I know I'm sure you lost a lot of opportunities and figured it out, but for a firm owner listening right now, because I understand how hard it is. I have these conversations every single day. How much free work did you donate today or this month? How many quick questions did you get? How many clients emailed you with questions where you actually should have probably charged for that meeting or set up monthly meetings in your packages? And, we just blurt out the answer because it's at the tip of our tongue. How did you figure out that that is a recipe for a disaster? Because it's the same thing when we're talking in a podcast or, if you're doing webinars, where not only you have to keep it simple and streamlined and create the curiosity and create inspired action, which is going to be your next step to contact you, to pay you. I always say, if you want to know the how, you get paid first, and then you can tell them all the hows you want. But until you have money in your bank account, none of the hows matter. How did you figure out how just to tell them how good it tastes without telling them the whole recipe? What did you do?
So what I did was I shut my mouth and opened my ears on what they were telling me their problems were, because it's more about making it clear that you can solve their problem and you understand their problem than about you telling them how you're going to fix it. So I have had so many of these experiences, and I really started thinking about how this shows up in my life. Like today alone, our ice maker down here in Costa Rica and our fridge isn't working, and it's 105 degrees outside.
Whoa,
Now,
that's
I don't
hot
need,
already.
it is hot. Yeah. And I don't want, like, if somebody came to me and I was like, can you fix my fridge? The last thing I want to hear is them reading the dang manual to me. No, 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 no. Don't send me the YouTube video. Don't don't tell me how to fix. Who can I pay to
Yeah.
come over here and fix it for me? And here's what you're selling. If you're doing that, you're selling fixed fridge, cold ice, cold drinks. That's what I should be hearing about. This is what your life will be like once it's fixed. You're not going to tell me about, well, I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to take out all my tools. I'm going to move your fridge. I'm going to take all the crap out of it. Don't tell me how you're going to do all this.
And it's going to take me 8 hours. No one wants to know how long it's going to take you either.
And like all of this information, I'm just like, don't care. When are you going to be here? And how long is it going to take you? And when can I have a cold soda? Like, that's it. So when you think about it, it's like your customer, like, they care, but they don't. They care about when they're going to get those results and how it's going to feel, but they don't really care about how you're going to get them there or the vehicle by which you're going to do it. It's like selling a trip to Miami and talking about TSA. Like, cool. Tell me about what's going to happen when we get there, because I really want to just enjoy and soak that in. So you really have to be focusing on what's their life going to be like when it's done and how can you get them there. You just have to tell them, like, I have the plane to get you to Miami. Trust me. We don't have to talk about what's going to happen. Just know that I can get you there.
Yeah, and I'll get you the private jet so we get there even faster and you can bypass TSA. And you want them, again, creating curiosity. Now you're like, well, Michelle, how are you going to do that? Am I going to have to pay more? Blah, blah. None of that matters. You just want to paint the picture of what they desire as the end result or as the end fix or the end. Did I say desire already? Yeah, end desire and want.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like you have to just focus on that as opposed to all the work you're going to do to get them there. And it's really hard for us to do because we associate the work with the success. But
Yes.
in reality, you have to put yourself in the client's shoes and you have to go, what is going to be changed about their life? How are they going to experience those results? Because they're not going to appreciate all the work I put in. They never will. Spoiler alert, they're never going to appreciate all the
Mm-hmm.
work you put in, but they will be able to feel the effects of it in a different way. And you have to speak to that. So my answer to that is really around using their words, putting yourself in their unique experience and perspective shifting into how they're going to experience those results, not how you're going to experience fixing it.
Love it. All right. Step 3.
Step 3, promoting yourself. So we talked about pitching, presenting, and now promoting yourself. And that means that like please never get on a podcast and be unprepared without a call to action, a single call to action. There's a theme here, simplified. So simple pitching, simple presenting, give them a really clear call to action at the end and be able to promote yourself. So promoting means like you're going to have a URL link to a freebie or to sign up for your newsletter or to schedule a consult call or whatever that looks like for you, whatever the beginning of your intake process is, then you need to make sure that they can fit into your customer journey and they have a way to enter that customer journey. So that has to be the call to action. They're going to put it in the show notes for you and you want to be pointing to it. And also a pro tip. This is actually what I do. I buy domains that are easy. So for example, I have an S Corp freebie, like an S Corp success plan, and I bought scorpsuccess.com. Why? So I can go on shows and I can say, download my free thing at scorpsuccess.com. You can click the link, but you're probably going to remember that. So it's more
Yeah.
likely that they're going to click that.
Yeah. It's called a pretty URL. I got that too. You guys hear it in every podcast I do in the middle, or not in the middle, in the beginning and the end. Go to theabundantcall.com to book your call. Yeah. So it's so cheap to do. And I get mine at GoDaddy and wherever you get it. And I mean, I probably have like 50 of those.
Yeah, me too. They're just easier because you can get these simple URLs that are easy to understand and remember. So if you're on an appearance anywhere, someone happens to shove a microphone up to your mouth and it's like, where can we go to find out more? And it's like scorpsuccess.com. It's so easy because then I'm like, keepwhatyouearn.com// da 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 da. It's like, no, just instead of having to send them the link, just, you can just send it to them easily. And respond quickly. So that's what I recommend doing is you have a URL or you have a landing page where people can find out more about working with you, your services, and it's just going to create that ease of the experience so that they can actually start with you on the right foot, see how simple
Yeah.
your process is and start working with you faster.
And it goes back to your other step number 2, where in the presentation when you're talking to them, you want to create inspired action. Here, we want to make sure you create inspired call to action because they need to be inspired to go to, oh, yeah, I need scorpsuccess.com. I can remember that and I need to go there. I need that, blueprint or whatever you give them on what to do with an S Corp, but you're not telling them how.
No, that
Giving
will
them
tell them how.
Yeah.
And people can choose if they want the how. They're electing to take the next step on the bus on the journey. So always what you're doing is you're never ask for the ring on the first date. You guys, please ask for the next date. Ask for the next thing. When you have a deep relationship with your clients and you want that, you want to just be asking for the next step in the process. So it's a micro step along the way, and it's more likely to be a yes and to progress you in that relationship. So, when you're on the show, ask them to click the link. When they click the link, now this gets into like the email stuff, but then like you're going to ask them to do the next thing or, ask them to book a call. So you just want to make sure that they can follow along where they're at in their journey and that they can engage with you really easily without a lot of hassle. Because if you put in onto a show and you go, oh, you can email me at shannon@keepwhatyouearn.com, you're really creating a lot of resistance and barrier. of now I have to draft an email. What the hell do I put in the subject line? What do you want me to say? Ugh, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. No,
They're afraid too.
it's so true. And just like we're giving you the steps on what you need to put this into action, but if you want to work with high quality clients, people who pay you premium fees, just do this work. This isn't a lot of time, especially if you get a VA, but it's definitely no out of pocket expenses to get these kinds of leads that can turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars, just like it has for you, Shannon. So, yeah, I love it. Are there any other pro tips that you have that you'd love to share with a colleague of yours? And, I asked Shannon to come and talk about this just because I think you've created the dream of so many firm owners that I've talked to over the years. And to work remotely and to not have that many clients and to be getting paid premiums, doing the stuff you love and creating this fractional CFO firm that you've done. I think it's just amazing and I honor you, and it's just cool to watch the journey too from the sidelines. And now have your own podcast, yeah, kudos to you. And I know that that's not for every firm owner out there. So we're not going to talk about that. It's not a necessary thing to do. It's only for, the 1% that think that starting a podcast will be a fun journey. It's a lot of work. I'll tell you straight from the, it's a lot of work. But is there anything else, Shannon, that you'd love to share with the listeners that maybe we haven't talked about on how they can experience the power of podcast and booking themselves on these shows and figuring out not only the industry niche, but the niche on their offer and what they're going to talk about without giving out the how?
Yeah. I would say this thing too is that one of the biggest struggles I've seen with people I've actually coached and helped through this is they want to cover so many different things. They go, what would I even talk about on a show? Like, what do I even have to offer on the show? They have one of two problems. They have too many things to talk about, or they feel like they don't have anything to talk about. It's kind of this like woman in their closet, right?
I got nothing to wear.
And nothing to wear. It's like I have a full closet, nothing to wear. So if you're going on shows and you're like, what the hell do I talk about? What I would recommend that you do, and I did this when I started my show. Now, you don't have to start a podcast over this, but I'm going to tell you the exercise I went through because it was super helpful. My now podcast manager told me, sit down, and I opened up a Google sheet because we live in spreadsheets. He asked me to take notes. I'm going to open Excel. This is just how I live.
Always.
Don't judge me, guys.
I'm the same way. My nickname is Spreadsheet. My friend gave me a nickname called Spreadsheet. Yeah.
So I opened up a Google sheet and they said, okay, sit down for 20, 30 minutes and write down every question you can answer. Every question, every dumb question your clients ask you, every thing that's come across your desk in emails, what are the FAQs of your life that you answer all the time? And what are the questions that you're capable of answering that maybe you don't get asked that often? But let's start with the FAQs. If you had your own FAQ page, what are the questions? Don't answer them, but just touch on the questions. And then you start unraveling, and then you go, oh my gosh. And my podcast manager says, how many did you have after 20 minutes? And I go, oh, I had 150 after minute 7. And I just stopped because I said, that's 3 years of content. That was 3 years of podcast. Think it was of weekly content. If I said for every 50, that's a year of podcasts. Holy cow. And then that's when I started my show because I said, wow, I have enough content. So if you're wondering, what would I even talk about? All you need is one question that you can answer, and you can answer in a thoughtful way, and you can find a succinct way to answer that question. And that is a great ever-present perpetual piece of content that you can do in multiple different forms, including podcasts. So you can create content on that topic, or you could just curate your own way of, here are the questions and here are my answers in an interview style format. So you can actually give the host those questions and say, ask me these questions.
Love
and
it.
The more specific you are and the easier you make it for the host, the more likely you are to get a yes. So that's a really big thing, is if you're wondering what content to present, you have a ton of it. You just have to sit down and really start thinking about what you know and putting it on paper instead of just keeping it all in your head and only using it to react to the questions you're actually getting.
Yeah, and putting what you know on paper, but turning it into questions. Like, what are the questions that your clients ask you? I think that's brilliant. So Awesome. Well, thank you, Shannon, so much. It's been so fun to have you back on here and supporting the community and giving them, now it's for you to go take inspired action and get this done. If you're really serious and committed about generating and attracting quality leads that are willing to pay premium fees, because those people are definitely going to listen to podcasts, and I think it's a higher caliber client. So thank you again, Shannon. It's been an honor, and I hope to do this again with you soon. Thank you all so much for joining Shannon and I here at the Abundant Accountant Podcast for another amazing episode. That was such a fun one. I always think it's great to talk about lead generation and how that is not sales, but that's a marketing effort. So if you are looking to increase your marketing efforts and grow your lead generation so you can have more opportunities to close clients and get premium quality clients paying you high fees, then that's what we talked about today. And I recommend that you invest the time to put in that effort. Now, if you want, you can pitch Shannon and get on her show. So if you want some low-hanging fruit, go to keepwhatyouearn.com and go pitch yourself to Shannon and tell her you heard about her show from this podcast if you're looking to generate some leads or even just get some practice. So once again, go to keepwhatyouearn.com and tell Shannon you heard us here. And for those of you that want to learn how to close, very different than marketing, in a way that feels simple, effortless, and automatic, so you don't even have to think about it, then go to theabundantcall.com and we can chat. You can chat with me and my team, because I've shown hundreds of other tax, accounting, and bookkeeping firm owners just like you how to create a system they've always dreamt of, a sales system, that is, step-by-step sales system, so you can close the clients in a very simple, effortless, and automatic fashion. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It's always a pleasure and so fun having Shannon here today. And no, we're not related, but we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for being here.